am Traci O'Very Covey. I've been an artist my entire life, and I've always drawn and painted and made things. And I went to the University of Utah. I studied all the foundational things like drawing and painting and sculpture. And then I decided to major in graphic design and illustration because I really love the idea of using my creativity to solve communication problems. So like if somebody had something they want to communicate it, then I could use my creativity to solve that visually and communicate it visually.
Okay, cool, great. And how did that translate into fine art?
So I did that for a number of years, and my graphic design work was always very visual and combined with illustration. And then I did just straight illustration projects as well. So over time, I just really craved, I guess, exploring my own personal creativity without having a client criteria. And so I started focusing more and more on my personal painting. And yeah, after I painted for a while, I loved the idea of public art. I'd actually seen a piece of public art by another illustrator, and I thought, oh my gosh, how did an illustrator go to being, creating this public sculpture? And so I researched that and, figured out that you apply through calls for artists and that kind of thing. And so I started doing that, and I got my first mural. So it really, my career kind of trajectory was through graphic design and illustration, then into my personal painting, and then moving into more murals and designing sculptures and things like that. My art's symbolic, and I believe that we're all interconnected and all of our energies are intertwined, and what we do affects each other and the whole planet. And I mean, I just feel like the energy of plants and animals and people and just that life form is all interconnected with this energy. And so while my public artworks, maybe my background with illustration and graphic design form my communication means in terms of like murals and a theme that needs to be communicated perhaps through this artwork. I'm used to working with that criteria, but now it's in a different way. And with my paintings, I usually just get an inspiration of something. I'm inspired by nature, or what I call the grace and joy of everyday life. So teacups, I have a series of teacups, just, I don't know, my murals have, one's called Habitat, that's people in kind of a neighborhoody environment with trees and squirrels and gardens and that kind of thing. So it's just what we do in our everyday life that brings pleasure. And or animals and plants and that kind of thing, gardens, or like these paintings here in streaming. I love this theme because I thought of both water and air with streaming. And so, I love to see birds flying in the sky. They're so free, and just like leaving the trail of energy behind them. I imagine how wonderful that would be to be flying through the air and just getting a different perspective on what's below. And then also with the water, I love sitting by a stream and just, watching the water flow around the rocks, or catching a glimpse of a little fish, in the shadowy edge of a stream. Or it's really wonderful if I see a bird, like the dipper bird. I don't know if people are familiar with dippers that much, but they bob up and down, they kind of dance on a rock. I guess they're catching insects. But it's just such a pleasure to sit there and watch nature, doing its thing. Yeah. So it's never been my intention to, paint something so realistic that it's, you could just see exactly what you might see if you were at that place. To me, it's my emotion, my feeling, what I want other people to feel, and capturing that idea of the interconnection. And I love designing the paintings. I spent a lot of time designing the compositions, working with the line. I love lines that curve and interact with each other. And then it becomes almost like a puzzle. There's just each element in the painting interacts with each other. And so it's kind of representational but abstracted as well. And so it takes people a minute to discover things in the painting. So that engages the viewer even more because they're looking to see maybe something that I love watching people when they say, oh yeah, now I see there's another face there, or oh yeah, now I see the other animal there. That kind of thing is really fun. I was doing some illustrations, I think, for the Utah Opera, and my intention was really to portray the whole like story, like the essence of the story in one painting. And so as I was doing sketches and thinking about all the major things that go on within that story, and I was drawing thumbnails really quickly. And so all of my lines were just little thumbnail lines overlapping, and I thought, oh wow, I really love that. And so I just kind of left it like that and kept exploring it further and further, because that's really how it developed in terms of it is everything connected. My art's always been more whimsical, I guess I would say, kind of sophisticated whimsy. But it really, I'll just get an idea in my head. It's like I just see a vision of something, and I work pretty small right off the bat, so I'll just sketch out that concept. I think from my graphic design background, I draw little thumbnails, and I put tracing paper over that, and then I'll clean it up and refine it several times, and I'll move things around a little bit in the drawing. So instead of just redrawing it over and over or erasing my drawing, I just keep layering this transparent paper over it so I can try different things and refine it more and more. One of the things that was interesting to me is like the desert landscape with the bird and this mountain landscape. The color palette is kind of more similar in those. And then the ones that are in water, as I was designing the color, which I really love to get the compositions, all the lines worked out first, and then playing around with doing a lot of color studies and getting the color to work just right. I mean, these, you know, some of these paintings, like this one for instance, could be very chaotic if the colors weren't in the right place for somebody to see and discover what's there. So that's really important to me, to get that balance so that you can see that there's, you know, a fish swimming one way and a fish swimming the other, and a leaf or whatever. Oh gosh, I love working with color. I mean, it's really a passion. And I think it's just really intuitive. You know, I was talking to a friend of mine about how color balance and, you know, how colors play off of each other. And that's one of the things I love to do in my work is, you know, I love the way a certain color looks next to another color. And so, and how that exchange of value or saturation really makes one color look different when it's next to another color. It can make it stronger, or, you know, make it stand back a little bit. And I find myself really making all of my colors more in the similar value range. So they're, I mean, you see black and darker colors, but oftentimes they're within a certain value range that just appeals to me. And I think it's just mostly intuitive. You know, I don't really think about it too much. It's just like, I just see it that way, and that's what I do. And I love mixing paint to, you know, sometimes I'll spend a while, you know, just getting at the color exactly that I want. But color, I think, is a big part of the design of it too. So the way the shapes and how much of the color in one shape is in the painting, you know, and the black really brings out the other values of the colors. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Streaming is open until September 3rd, and there are still some incredible works of art left. If you haven't been in to see the show yet, now is a great time. You can find more information at ajfinearts.net.